A Venezuelan warship suddenly makes an aggressive move toward a United States Navy aircraft carrier, accelerating hard and cutting dangerously close across its projected path. Officials later described the maneuver as a defensive response to foreign presence in nearby waters. But the speed, timing, and angle of the approach tell a very different story. This is no longer routine shadowing. Within moments, a calm, maritime environment turns into a high-risk confrontation at sea. The distance between steel hulls begins to collapse faster than standard naval protocol allows. What should have remained a controlled observation instantly crosses a critical line, one where miscalculation can no longer be undone. From the outside, the move looks bold, almost reckless. The Venezuelan ship holds its course, pushing forward with intent, forcing proximity where none is required. The message is unmistakable. Pressure is being applied, not from afar, but up close. Too close. At this distance, even minor errors carry enormous consequences. The aircraft carrier does not respond dramatically. There is no sudden turn away, no visible alarm, no broadcast warning echoing across open channels. The massive carrier continues on its path, steady and unshaken, its flight deck operations moving forward as planned. Jets remain staged. Crew members continue their routines. The ship's silence is striking. But silence does not mean inaction. Below the surface, systems shift. Awareness sharpens. Every change in speed, every slight adjustment in heading, every second of approach is being measured. What looks like chaos from afar is being cataloged with precision. The Venezuelan warship presses on, committed now to a maneuver that leaves little room for correction. Momentum builds, but so does risk. At this range, the margin for error shrinks rapidly. A delayed response, a misjudged turn, a single moment of overconfidence. Any one of them could turn this encounter into something far more serious. Yet the approach continues. The sea itself seems to tighten as distance closes. The space between the ships feels smaller, heavier, charged with consequence. This is no longer about signaling intent. This is about control, about who forces the situation and who absorbs it. Observers watching from afar understand what this moment represents. This is where confrontations are defined before anything explodes. The Venezuelan maneuver was meant to assert authority, to compel a reaction, to test resolve through proximity. Instead, it has created a moment where every outcome now carries weight. The decision has already been made. The path forward has been chosen. And as the ships move closer, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This encounter is no longer about the move that was made. It is about what happens next. Because once the line between shadowing and confrontation is crossed, there is no returning to routine. From this point forward, every second matters. Every choice carries consequence. And the sea remembers mistakes long after the ships move on. Long before the Venezuelan ship believes it has created any real pressure, the carrier strike group is already watching. Far beyond visual range, advanced radar systems quietly register changes in speed and heading. Aerial surveillance confirms the approach from above, while real-time tracking systems begin mapping intent, second by second. Nothing about the movement is unexpected. To an outside observer, the maneuver appears bold, sudden, assertive, and close. But inside the carrier group, it is understood differently. This is not a surprise, it is a developing scenario unfolding within full awareness. Every data point arrives before the distance becomes meaningful. The carrier systems do not react emotionally, they calculate. Speed is measured, angles are plotted, predicted paths are compared against known tactical patterns. What looks aggressive on the surface is reduced to numbers, trajectories, and probabilities. Inside the carrier's command spaces, there is no urgency, no raised voices, no rushed decisions, only quiet focus. Officers stand at their stations, reviewing information that has already been processed minutes in advance. Displays update smoothly. The situation is classified, not escalated. This is not a confrontation being feared, it is an encounter being understood. The carrier continues its operations without interruption. Aircraft movement on the flight deck remains steady. Escort ships hold formation with subtle precision. To the untrained eye, nothing appears to change, but beneath that calm exterior, awareness deepens. Each adjustment made by the approaching ship reveals more than intended. A slight increase in speed suggests commitment. A maintained course angle reduces uncertainty. The closer the ship moves, the clearer its intent becomes. Proximity does not create pressure here, it creates clarity. This is the critical difference. Pressure relies on surprise. Control relies on awareness. The carrier group allows the approach to continue, not because it lacks options, but because observation provides advantage. Every second gained without escalation sharpens understanding. Every nautical mile closed removes ambiguity. The encounter shifts quietly. What began as a perceived challenge becomes a monitored event. The balance of power no longer depends on who moves first, but on who sees the full picture earliest. And in this moment, that picture is complete. The Venezuelan ship believes momentum is building. In reality, predictability is. The carrier group does not need to respond yet. It does not need to signal dominance. By maintaining composure and holding course, it controls the tempo of the encounter. Time itself becomes a tool. Patience replaces reaction. The sea remains calm, but the situation has already changed. Not visibly, not dramatically, but fundamentally. One side is still trying to apply pressure through movement. The other has already absorbed it through awareness. And as the distance continues to close, one fact becomes increasingly clear. The carrier is not reacting to the situation. It is shaping what happens next.
As the Venezuelan ship maintains its close proximity, the limits of the maneuver begin to surface. What initially appeared assertive now starts to feel constrained. The reduced distance leaves little room to maneuver, turning the surrounding water into a narrowing corridor rather than open space. Closeness, once intended as leverage, becomes a vulnerability. At this range, every movement matters. Minor adjustments are required to hold position. Small changes in speed, slight corrections in heading. Individually, they seem insignificant. Together, they begin to tell a story. Intent becomes visible. The approach no longer feels fluid. It becomes mechanical, predictable. Each correction follows the last in a way that can be anticipated. Momentum replaces flexibility, and commitment replaces choice. From the Venezuelan ship's perspective, maintaining pressure requires constant attention. The margin for error shrinks with every second spent this close. A wider formation or greater distance would allow options. Here, options disappear. Space is no longer an advantage, it is a constraint. What was meant to project control now exposes overcommitment. By staying so close for so long, the maneuver reveals exactly how far the ship is willing to go and how limited its alternatives have become. Inside the carrier group, the change is immediately recognized. The approach is no longer uncertain, the patterns are clear, speed adjustments follow expected intervals, course corrections arrive when predicted. The situation shifts from dynamic to readable. Predictability settles in. The Venezuelan ship is no longer shaping the encounter. It is sustaining a position it cannot easily abandon without consequence. Turning away abruptly would signal retreat. Holding course increases risk. Pressing closer offers no additional advantage. Momentum becomes a trap. The closer the ship remains, the more committed it appears. And commitment, without flexibility, carries cost. Any sudden maneuver now would magnify danger rather than reduce it. Any delay compounds exposure. This is the critical misjudgment. Pressure applied without preserving space removes unpredictability. Control assumed through proximity ignores geometry, timing, and consequence. The approach relies on the belief that closeness forces reaction. Instead, it invites evaluation. What began as a calculated presence now resembles impatience. The strategy narrows. The room to adapt vanishes. The maneuver has reached its limit, not because of resistance, but because of its own design. The encounter has quietly changed character. It is no longer about asserting influence, it is about managing risk, and risk is growing on only one side. From this point forward, the outcome begins to settle, not through force, but through exposure. The ship that intended to control the situation has revealed its boundaries. The side that remained patient now understands them fully. The misjudged approach does not end the encounter, but it defines it. Because once flexibility is surrendered, control soon follows. And as the situation continues to unfold, one reality becomes increasingly clear. The next shift will not come from pressure. It will come from precision. The carrier group responds without words. There is no broadcast warning, no sudden change meant to draw attention. Instead, movement begins, subtle, deliberate, and precisely timed. Escort ships adjust their alignment by degrees rather than distance, reshaping the space around the carrier in ways that appear routine to anyone not watching closely.
The carrier itself alters its operational posture slightly. Not enough to signal retreat, not enough to suggest escalation, just enough to change the geometry of the encounter. Aircraft readiness increases quietly. Flight operations continue, but crews remain staged. Systems are prepared without urgency. Nothing is rushed, nothing is announced. The carrier does not need to declare awareness. It demonstrates it through discipline. These adjustments are small, but they matter. Each repositioning subtly alters angles and timing. Lines of approach shift. Distances that once seemed manageable begin to narrow. The engagement space, once neutral, starts to favor one side.
The Venezuelan ship feels the change almost immediately.
Angles that were previously easy to maintain now require correction. Holding position demands more effort. Minor adjustments are no longer optional. They are necessary. The ship is no longer sustaining its approach. It is responding to the environment around it. And that environment is changing. The most effective part of the response is its restraint. Nothing aggressive is shown. No force is displayed. The carrier group allows the situation to evolve naturally, guided by movement rather than message. Control is applied quietly. Each adjustment made by the carrier group forces a response. Each response from the Venezuelan ship further limits its options. The interaction becomes asymmetrical, one side shaping the space, the other adapting to it. The Venezuelan ship is no longer deciding where the encounter goes. The balance begins to tilt. It is reacting to changes it did not initiate, responding to a framework it did not design. The sense of pressure reverses, not through confrontation, but through positioning.
This is how control shifts at sea.
Not with sudden force, not with loud warnings, but with geometry, timing, and patience. The carrier group maintains its calm posture, allowing the implications of its movements to settle. The silence becomes part of the message. Nothing needs to be said because everything is being shown. The sea remains calm, the ships remain intact, yet the encounter has changed fundamentally. What began as an attempt to apply pressure through proximity now feels constricted. The Venezuelan ship finds itself in less favorable alignment, with fewer paths forward and increasing exposure the longer the situation continues.
Still, no warning is issued.
The carrier group does not escalate, because it does not need to. The encounter has already moved in its favor. Awareness has turned into advantage. Patience has become leverage. And as the engagement space continues to reshape itself, one truth becomes unavoidable.
Control has begun to shift.
Not because of what was said, not because of what was shown, but because of how quietly it happened.
The realization does not arrive all at once. It unfolds gradually in small moments that begin to add up. The Venezuelan commanders recognize that the carrier has not been influenced by proximity. Its course remains steady, its operations continue uninterrupted. The presence that was meant to impose pressure has changed nothing. Instead, something else has happened. Their own ship is now responding to a situation it no longer directs. Each attempt to hold position requires more correction than before. Adjustments that once felt minor now feel deliberate and forced. Maintaining alignment demands constant attention, and with each correction, exposure increases. Risk accumulates quietly. The longer the ship remains in this posture, the fewer options remain. Turning away abruptly carries meaning. Holding course carries danger. Pressing closer offers no new advantage. Every path forward now includes consequence. This is where confidence begins to fade. What once felt assertive now feels constrained. The initial certainty that proximity would force reaction gives way to uncertainty. The carrier has not reacted as expected, not because it failed to notice, but because it never needed to. That understanding settles heavily. Inside the Venezuelan command spaces, decisions become slower, calculations are revisited, alternatives are considered, then dismissed. The initiative they believed they held is no longer there. It has slipped away, replaced by a need to manage risk rather than shape the encounter. Momentum has reversed. The carrier group continues without urgency. Its calm persistence becomes impossible to ignore. By doing nothing dramatic, it communicates everything. The message is not delivered through words or warnings, but through consistency. The pressure has shifted. The Venezuelan ship is no longer applying it. It is absorbing it. Each moment spent maintaining proximity increases visibility and vulnerability. The approach that was meant to demonstrate strength now highlights limits. Space has narrowed. Flexibility has disappeared. The situation has reached a point where regaining control is no longer possible without escalation.
An escalation is not the objective. The realization becomes unavoidable. This maneuver has revealed more than it has achieved. It has shown willingness, but not leverage. Commitment, but not control. Strength was assumed, limitations were exposed. This is the cost of misjudging awareness. The carrier did not need to push back. It did not need to issue a warning. By remaining steady and reshaping the environment, it allowed the situation to resolve itself. The sea remains unchanged, but the encounter is decided. What began as an attempt to test resolve has become a lesson in restraint and preparation. The moment has passed. The advantage has moved on. From here, the only remaining choice is how the situation ends. Not with a reversal. Not with dominance regained, but with acknowledgement. Because once initiative is lost at sea, it is rarely taken back without consequence. And the commanders now understand something they did not at the beginning. The carrier was never under pressure. They were. The Venezuelan ship eventually increases distance. There is no announcement, no dramatic turn meant to save face. The ship simply creates space, easing away from close proximity and allowing the sea to widen once again. The disengagement is controlled and deliberate, chosen not to provoke further attention. No incident follows. The carrier group continues its mission uninterrupted, maintaining course and speed as if the encounter never occurred. Flight operations proceed. Escort ships hold formation. The vast structure of the carrier moves forward with the same steady purpose it had from the beginning. Nothing changes, because nothing needed to. The sea begins to settle, and with distance restored, the tension fades from the surface. To an outside observer, the moment disappears quickly. 2 ships, open water, no visible trace of confrontation. But outcomes at sea are not always written in damage. No shots are fired. No warnings are broadcast. No messages are exchanged. Yet the result is unmistakable. The encounter ends not with force, but with understanding. One side continues exactly as planned. The other leaves having learned something it did not anticipate. The lesson is not delivered through aggression, but through control exercised without display. This is how silent warnings work. They do not announce themselves. They do not seek attention. They are recognized only by those who experience them. The absence of escalation becomes the message. The lack of response becomes the signal. The carrier never needed to assert dominance. It demonstrated it through restraint. As distance increases, the Venezuelan ship carries more than just altered coordinates. It carries the memory of a moment where proximity failed, where pressure reversed, and where control belonged entirely to patience and preparation. The sea returns to calm. Waves close behind the passing hulls. The encounter leaves no mark on the water, no evidence for headlines or reports, but the lesson remains, carried forward in awareness rather than record. Some mistakes are loud. This one was quiet. And quiet mistakes are often the most enduring. Because they are not forced into memory by destruction. They are remembered because they reveal limits, because they expose assumptions, because they show what happens when presence is mistaken for power. The carrier group moves on, unchanged. The warning has been delivered, not through weapons, but through discipline. Not through threat, but through control. And in the open sea, where nothing is said and everything is observed, that is often the clearest message of all.